Have you ever met someone who laughs at nearly everything? The kind of person who can find something funny even in moments that would overwhelm most people. Chances are their lightness isn't accidental. It usually comes from having endured far more than they let on. And I don't mean something trivial like an awkward phase at school. I'm talking about experiences that reshape your entire perspective and quietly alter how you move through the world. Picture this. Someone cuts them off in traffic. Most people react instantly with anger, but not them. Their mind is already elsewhere, imagining what might be happening in that driver's life. Maybe a rough day, a painful breakup, or simply an urgent need to get somewhere fast. When you've weathered your own tempests, other people's downpours feel different. What rarely gets mentioned is this. People who have endured too much begin to function on an entirely different wavelength. They're not damaged, they're conditioned. Out of necessity, their minds have crafted a remarkable survival system that's still adjusting to a reality where danger isn't constant anymore. And beneath that adaptation, something even more profound is unfolding. They develop a kind of resilience to life's disorder. Not an absence of pain, but a resistance to being shattered by it. They understand deeply that survival isn't just a possibility, it's a certainty. And here's the surprising part. You might expect someone who has walked through fire to come out hardened or withdrawn, yet often the opposite happens. They become extraordinarily empathetic, almost fiercely so. They recognize hurt in others instantly because they've learned its language by heart. A subtle change in your voice, a smile that doesn't quite reach your eyes, they see it. Oh, they've already figured out how they're going to check on you later, gently, casually, without making you uncomfortable. Silence doesn't confuse them. They don't just notice when words stop, they understand the quality of the quiet. Is it thick with disappointment, edged with irritation, weighted by exhaustion? They read shifts in mood the way others notice a change in the wind. While most people enter a room and register the decor, they register the emotional climate. And there's something genuinely beautiful that can grow out of that kind of pain. Many of them experience what psychologist Richard Tesche describes as post-traumatic growth. His research suggests that roughly half to two-thirds of people who endure major trauma don't merely return to baseline, they move beyond it. Their relationships become richer, their priorities sharpen, their gratitude for small, ordinary moments intensifies to almost humorous levels. A stunning sunset can bring tears to their eyes, and they won't apologize for it. But there's another side that rarely gets discussed. Hypervigilance often lingers. Their internal alarm system doesn't fully power down. Have you ever noticed someone who insists on sitting where they can see the entrance? Or someone who prepares a dozen contingency plans for something as simple as meeting for coffee? That isn't irrational fear. It's a nervous system shaped by experience, one that learned safety can disappear without warning. And here's the part that can really surprise you. They tend to minimize their own stories. It wasn't that bad. Other people had it worse. I'm okay. Over and over. It's as if they've become uncomfortable being seen as wounded. For so long, survival meant convincing themselves they were fine, so admitting they're struggling can feel like losing ground. The irony in all of this can feel almost unbearable. Take relationships, for example. People who have endured too much often swing between fierce loyalty and quiet distance, and sometimes they embody both at the same time, which is every bit as confusing as it sounds. They'll answer your call at 3 a.m. without hesitation. They'll sit with you in your worst moments, but ask them to open up about what they need, and suddenly they're impossibly busy. Why does that happen? Because for them, closeness has rarely been simple. Early lessons taught them that connection can shift without warning. So when someone begins to matter, their nervous system doesn't soften, it tightens. They long for intimacy, yet the idea of relying on someone can feel dangerous. In their experience, dependence has often come at a cost. So they teach themselves not to need anyone. From the outside, that looks like strength. On the inside, it can feel profoundly isolating. At the same time, something extraordinary develops, an almost unmatched ability to adapt. A new job? They'll adapt. A move across the country? They'll manage. Life unraveling on a random Tuesday? Somehow, they'll still find a way to stand. And their humor, especially the dark one, operates on another level. It's not cruelty, it's reclamation. When they laugh at the absurdity of what they've survived, pain loses a fraction of its authority. Humor becomes a shield. Every sharp joke is a quiet act of defiance against whatever once tried to undo them. There's another surprising layer, their complicated relationship with control. They may obsess over tiny details, which mug to use, which route to take, yet remain strangely calm in the face of massive uncertainty. The reason is simple. They've already learned that the biggest events in life often can't be controlled at all, so they focus on what can be managed. Yes, they might spiral over something trivial while staying steady during a career upheaval. That contradiction isn't a flaw, it's the design. They are living paradoxes, resilient yet soft, cautious yet deeply giving, realistic yet still capable of hope. Experience has taught them that two opposing truths can coexist, and that strength and tenderness are not enemies, but companions. Life has a way of being breathtaking and merciless at the very same time. And beneath everything we've talked about, there's a quieter layer that rarely gets named. It's grief. Not always the grief of losing another person, but the grief of losing a former version of yourself. They mourn the self who trusted without hesitation, the one who laughed freely without first scanning the room, the version that didn't mentally rehearse conversations or brace for shifts in tone. They miss the lightness they once carried, the part of them that didn't question whether they were too much or not enough, the self that moved through uncertainty without that subtle tightening in the chest. How do you explain that kind of loss? How do you admit you're nostalgic for a version of yourself you can barely remember? How do you tell someone you feel homesick for a place that only ever existed inside your own spirit? Maybe it was a childhood you didn't fully get to inhabit, a softness you weren't allowed to keep, a freedom you learned about only after it was gone. This grief doesn't shatter them, it sculpts them. It makes them more observant, more deliberate, more protective of their peace. They value calm not because they're fragile, but because they understand the price of chaos. They cherish safe, steady people because they've known what it feels like to stand on unstable ground. And maybe that's the deeper psychology at play. Those who have endured too much don't simply survive their experiences, they integrate them. They develop a layered, nuanced understanding of humanity. They know strength isn't the absence of breaking, it's the willingness to gather the pieces again and again, even when they don't fit quite the same way before. What began as survival slowly transforms into insight. What once felt like unbearable pain becomes compassion. Without realizing it, they become something rare, like a lighthouse. A lighthouse doesn't shine because its life was calm. It shines because it has withstood the dark, because it remembers the violence of storms and still chooses to stand. The light is not perfection, it's persistence. So the next time you meet someone who seems unusually at ease with uncertainty, someone who laughs a little too easily at their own scars, someone who sets firm boundaries yet loves deeply, understand none of it is accidental. Every ounce of their wisdom was earned. Every joke carries history. Every quiet moment of depth is built on battles you may never see. They've been through more than most, and they're still here, still showing up, still choosing hope in small, stubborn ways. That isn't just psychology, it's resilience turned into art. It's poetry in motion. And if this resonated with you, if you saw yourself or someone you love in these words, consider subscribing to support more reflections like this.